and they actually came down with one of those boom cranes and crushed our booth. People who have never been to SEMA before, it's probably the place to go if you're a car enthusiast. It's probably a little tougher if you don't have connections to companies, because obviously it's a company-based show, it's a trade show. But if you've never gone, definitely get to Vegas. Go see the outdoor section of it. I mean, you have to have part of company ties to go inside, but as far as the outside goes, you have guys like Ken Block and all those guys flying around, cruising around the parking lot, and it's an awesome experience just to see like the Hoonigans and all those groups and all the stuff they do outside. I don't think people realize how much work actually goes into these events. People just they show up the day of, the Tuesday morning, and they start walking around. They're looking at all the lights, all the trade shows, and thinking what kind of great time it is. They walk the floor for a couple hours. They go out, they party, they come back the next day. A lot of people I don't think realize the actual time and the effort and the planning and all that goes into these trade shows and SEMA shows and things like that. I mean, we spend months preparing for these things because, as not many people know, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars just to show up. And then you got to build your booth, and then you got to fly out your whole team and the logistics. It's a very big undertaking to do. The last night of setup, about 6 o'clock when they kick you out, they were hanging up the last piece. They had the rigging company there, and they actually came down with one of those boom cranes and crushed our booth. When you put together these booths and the night before something like this happens, you all just stand here and say, how do we just spend $200,000 to be here, and now we don't even have a booth to show people tomorrow? But I gotta give props to them, the whole SEMA and the unions and everything like that. They have their own workshops, so they rebuilt the booth overnight. And we showed up and they said, don't worry about it, it'll be fine. Come tomorrow morning ready to work and we'll have it up. No one believed them, but they did. So they did a good job with that. That's kind of our first experience doing the SEMA show. It started off absolutely terrible, but it ended up being great because we signed up a bunch of new clients. That was kind of like our first introduction for our company into the aftermarket, detailing industry. That was the first show we went to for it. So it was a great experience. I was personally building a car for myself, kind of planned to do it over about a year and a half. Just take it slow, kind of plan it out the way I wanted to build it, kind of like every other car guy. So Mike Forsythe, he hits me up, and I kind of show him like the renderings of what I'm planning on doing with the car. And this is probably about the beginning of June, maybe end of May. And he's like, do you ever think about building a car for SEMA? Use it kind of as like a trade show marketing piece. And my goal was to use it more as like a local marketing piece, some shows up in the Northeast. And I kind of was like, do you mean this year SEMA? Like, November? And he was like, yeah, I got a couple people that, I think we could put together a cool car for it. And I know Orful Vehicle Wraps, they have a booth space outside that they were looking to, have a car on. And one of the new colors that they were promoting was like this crazy sunburst kind of orange looking color, and it kind of worked perfectly with our brands. So it was like, all right, let's give it a shot. I kind of talked to the body shop guys. The car is already heading there. They think that they have as long as they need with it, and then we kind of tell them that this whole car has to be done and shipped at like mid-October. They were kind of a little taken back because it was one guy actually going to be building the car. He kind of does the body kits himself, and he does them in the back at his leisure. Probably about a month he built the whole car. We did a full prior design wide body kit on it. And there were a bunch of other people, other partners that we kind of along the way brought in on the project. One of the brands was GT House. They have all these crazy exhaust systems for the car. And I always loved their exhaust systems. I was a big GTR fan. I knew they had like this crazy GTR exhaust. This is kind of how I found out about them. And then I found out they had one actually for Challengers as well. So yeah, Mike introduced me. We do a little email back and forth, and they're all on board for it. Logistically wise, I think there was a little error where I don't know if the shipping company thought we were based out of LA, but we're really based out of New York. So they actually shipped the exhaust to LA a week before it was supposed to be in New York to get put on the car. So then we ship out the car to SEMA. It's got its stock exhaust, so we were kind of bummed about that. But then Mike hits us up and actually says that the company is going to drive it from LA to Vegas. So, which was awesome to have a company to do that. They had one of their guys drive it from LA all the way to Vegas. We bolted this thing on the floor. So it would be on the trade show. It's pretty cool. My background has always been, I love American muscle. I love old school 70s muscle, early 60s. The Challenger was kind of like the only car I find to be still to its roots of retro muscle cars. I was also, like every other kid my age, probably growing up, Fast and the Furious. I always loved the R34s, the crazy LED lights, the underglow, all that stuff. So that was kind of like my inspiration for the car. I kind of wanted something that had those Japanese elements to it, and I felt like Challengers and Mopar, the community, is probably the only community that you really can get away with doing stupid things like that, as far as cutting your car apart, putting flares on it, bagging it, putting 22-inch or 20-inch wheels on it. So not a lot of car culture and car groups would really accept your car if you did stuff like that to it, because it's very untraditional. But the Mopar community kind of loves that stuff. They love LED lights and all that stupid stuff. So it was kind of a perfect fit. Kind of brought my passion for Japanese cars and the American cars together. So that was kind of the whole basis of the car and what the design was going for with it. So another challenge that people I don't think realize when you build a car, and I didn't realize this, is a lot of things go wrong when you build a car. And when you have 3 years to build it, you forget about it for a month and you come back to it and you start working on it again. When you're building it for a timeline, it's every day you got to figure out how to fix that problem. So the last day was the day before the car actually had to be put on the trailer and drove to Vegas. I'm driving it back from one shop. They just installed the whole interior, so we did racing seats and harness bar and all that. So I got that installed in Queens, New York, and I had to drive the car back out to Long Island to get transported. So as I'm driving, there was some miscommunication, I guess, between a few of the shops because, like I said, the car's bouncing around shop to shop. One shop thought they installed the bumper. The other shop thought the next shop was supposed to install the bumper. So basically, it was held on by two 10 mil screws. And I'm driving down back out to Long Island, and I hear this loud flapping noise. So obviously, any noise you hear when you're driving a car, you kind of get, something's wrong. So I kind of peeked out the window, veered the car a little bit without realizing as I'm peeking out the window, and I just absolutely smashed a median and ripped apart the whole front wheel. And now this is 12 hours before the car's got to get shipped out. I pull over to the side of the road, I'm trying to figure out what this flapping noise is. I realize the whole bumper's hanging off. So now, literally a day before the car is getting shipped out to Vegas, my car is falling apart on the road. So then I get back to the shop, basically zip tie the bumper together so I can get back to the shop, our shop. And then I give Mike a call saying, Mike, how do I fix this wheel? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I absolutely just destroyed the wheel. And he's like, SEMA's next week. What do you mean you destroyed the wheel? So he calls the guys at Vossen. Vossen basically tells him that it's a custom one-off wheel. I don't even think we have the parts in stock right now for it. So now we go into absolute panic mode. Thankfully, one of the shops in Long Island, we're confident enough that they could fix the wheel enough to where you wouldn't notice. The car is actually a slam car, so when it drops to the ground, you can't really see the top lip, thankfully. So they were able to fix it 90%. You can't even notice unless you get up on it and feel it. I made sure it was, kind of settled the right way before I lowered the car. You weren't able to tell, and that was kind of a relief a little bit because the last thing you want to do is show up and have the clown car of a destroyed car that's held on by zip ties. But when you kind of find the right people to build your car, they all do the right thing and help you out the best they can. And I mean, we had people working overnight to wrap the car. Honestly, when I have to take the wrap off, I'm probably going to rip off most of the paint because I didn't have enough time to let the paint actually cure. So the car was wrapped 2 days after it was painted. So that's a whole nother issue when I go to pull the wrap off. It's probably going to pull the paint off, but we'll deal with that when it happens. As far as like all the parts we used and everything, it was kind of like, I called it like the United Nations. We had a hood built custom from a company out of Russia. Obviously the body kit came from Germany. Car is American, but it's made in Canada and Mexico. So the car kind of like fell apart from everywhere. The interior has all these crazy LED lights, underglow. We cruised down the Vegas Strip and this thing was like, had strobe lights on it. It was stupid, but it got a lot of attention. So it works for SEMA. Having my car there was, it was like a kid's dream. You know what I mean? Like you go in your garage at 15, 16, 17 years old, you have your first car, you do stupid things to it. You spray with Plasti Dip, you put AutoZone LED lights on it. And that was kind of what I wanted to do with this car. You know what I mean? I wanted to customize it and make it the way I wanted, and hopefully everyone else kind of thought it was cool. And to see all these companies kind of put trust into someone and say, here's $3,000 worth of parts for $200. And, it's really nice to see that people they care about someone that has like a dream about building a car. We actually had someone from our office trailer the car all the way out there. I met him there early to set the car up. So it was kind of not a great experience being there, like the day before under the car sweating, putting the exhaust on, putting the wheels on. But that next day when the show first started and we kind of walked up to where it was and there was just a crowd of 30 to 40 people like walking around it and like trying to open the door because they wanted to see what was inside of it. Like it was a great feeling. And, I don't think you could describe the feeling of seeing your car, like actually intrigue people. A lot of times you walk outside, you look back at it and you're like, oh, it's a cool car. But to actually have other people have that same feeling, that was a really awesome feeling. To own a SEMA car on a daily basis, it's still a great feeling. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I'll be talking to people that see it on Instagram and they'll be like, oh, I remember seeing that car in a magazine or whatever. But like any other car that you cut apart and rip the suspension off and do all these kind of crazy things. Every time you take it for a ride, something breaks. And it's not the fault of any company or any part. It's what happens when you take a perfectly good car and you cut the fenders off of it and change the suspension with 2,000 miles on it and do things you're not supposed to do to a car when a manufacturer makes it. They make it a certain way, and then you just absolutely destroy it. So it's a love-hate relationship. You know what I mean? Like that was your baby. That was the car you've always wanted to own, always wanted to build. So every time you get in it, you get in with a smile until something goes wrong. But like I said, you find the right shops who are willing to help you out all the time, and they make it happen. They fix it for you, and then you just keep driving it.
We'd like to thank Vincero Watches for supporting the VINwiki YouTube channel this month. Vincero makes a great selection of beautiful watches that are extremely well made, and in fact they spend 5 times more than any of their direct-to-consumer competitors on their materials. They just came out with this Apex race watch that happens to match my 430 Scuderia beautifully, and I'm sure they've got something that'll go with anything you want to wear or drive. So be sure to check them out and find your next great watch today.